Hey friends, Kim McCann, program developer at Prairie, and today we are making a very special recipe. This is a recipe called oliebollen or oliekoek, and my apologies in advance to the German and Dutch speaking people out there for my pronunciation. That's the best I can do, I promise. I did try. So what are oliekoek or oliebollen? They are, well, we kind of think of them today as donuts. And in fact, many entomologists say that this very recipe is probably the way we got to the word donut. So, oliebollen are a deep fried pastry treat. It's a yeasted dough, but unlike normal, modern, what we think of as yeasted donuts today, these in fact are not a dough that's rolled out and the gluten activated. This is made from a batter dropped into oil. So we're gonna make these today. I'll walk you through what it takes to make them, and then we'll talk about why I chose this recipe to make today. All right, so here we've got our ingredients all laid out. We've got some sugar and milk, some powdered sugar, some all-purpose flour, sea salt, eggs, some active dry yeast. I've got some cranberries and some speculatus spice for the version that I'm making today. And we've also got some cooking oil, a nice neutral oil using canola oil, and you can use whatever neutral oil you desire. So in the microwave, I have heated up my milk in a glass measuring cup to about lukewarm. So you don't want it too hot, you're gonna kill your yeast, but you don't want it cold because that heat will help activate the yeast. And I'm gonna add that yeast with some granulated sugar. That sugar is gonna help feed the yeast so that it does what it is meant to do. We're gonna give that just a quick stir, kind of distribute that, and then we're going to leave it alone for about 5 or 10 minutes to let it start doing its job. In my bowl, I've measured out my flour, and I am going to add to that my salt and my spice. Now, traditionally, oliebollen do not have spice added to the flour, but these are for a special purpose, and so I am adding speculatus spice, which is a spice mix. If you think of speculous or cookie butter, it's that flavor there. It's cardamom and cinnamon and nutmeg, mace, a little bit of heat from some pepper, and we're just going to mix that into our flour just to make sure that it's incorporated. And then we're going to make a little bit of a well down in the center there, and to that well we're going to add our egg, and we're going to break those up, get it mixed up just a little bit here, incorporate that good egginess to our dry ingredients. And then as you can see, our yeast has done its work. It is nice and big and foamy and fluffy. So I am going to shake off this whisk, which was probably a bad choice to start the mixing, but what's done is done. And then we're going to, I'm going to bring a proper spoon, and then we're going to go ahead and add our activated yeast into that mixture. Look at that, beautiful. And then we're going to get this all mixed together. Now you could use a hand mixer here if you wanted to make sure that you've got everything together. The whisk might not have been a bad idea. Once I get this a little more incorporated with the spoon here, I might switch back to the whisk. And what we're looking for basically is a mixture that is, first of all, well combined, all your flour is broken up and mixed into the mix, and we're looking for a consistency sort of like a cake batter or a pancake batter. Now, rightly so, you could be asking yourself, Kim, why are you making a recipe that you can barely pronounce? Fair question. The reason is sort of circuitous. We at Prairie are gearing up right now to celebrate our 40th anniversary of the Headless Horseman Festival. 40 years we've been doing this. We're so excited to celebrate this year. Now, most of you probably do know that the Headless Horseman is a character that first appeared in Washington Irving's short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And in that story, hapless schoolteacher Ichabod Crane is invited to a fancy dinner at the mansion of his crush, Miss Van Tassel, Katrina Van Tassel. Her father was very rich. Ichabod was very much in love, and he went and was amazed at the spread that was put out. And amongst all the treats, the meats, the sweets, were this special thing that he mentioned specifically, oliekoek or oliebollen. So this is a Dutch recipe that was originally made, was fried in hog fat or lard. And I mentioned before that the etymology for the word donut actually comes from this recipe. So the dough is dropped into the lard and then fried. Now, back in the day when something was deep fried, it was hard to regulate the heat with wood fire, so sometimes the oil was a little too hot, but you had to cook the inside of the dough as well, and they tend to puff up a little bit when you drop that batter in, as you'll shortly see. So what happened was a lot of times the outside became very dark before the inside was actually cooked. So in comparison, people looked at these balls of dough that were very dark on the outside, and they looked a lot like black walnuts. If you've ever seen a black walnut that has dropped off a tree, once it leaves the branch, it starts to oxidize, it turns black, and that's why they called them dough nuts, because they looked like black walnuts, and they were made out of dough nuts, and then we put it together, donut. All right, so it's probably a little thicker than I want it to be, but I am out of milk, so we're gonna call it there. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do is I am going to add some cranberries. We're gonna go ahead and add some dried cranberries into this. I think the cranberries are gonna go really well with the speculoos spice, and I'm gonna get those mixed in. Boy, that speculoos spice smells amazing. Very excited for this recipe. So I've got those cranberries mixed in, and that's pretty much it for the dough. It's a fairly straightforward dough. We're gonna cover it and let it rest for about an hour to get that yeast really activated and get some bubbles in there, and then we're gonna move on to the next step. Now, some of you sleuthers out there might have noticed that the light in the window over my shoulder here has gradually gotten brighter, and so you may have surmised that I have been making these oliebollen very early in the morning. And you might ask yourself, Kim, why are you deep frying at an ungodly hour? And I would say to you, I asked myself that as well, but there is a very good reason. I am headed off this morning, bright and early, to meet up with our friends at Sun King. And here's the other special thing and why I'm making this recipe this morning. So, in celebration of our 40th anniversary of Headless Horseman, we are just briefly putting Ichabod Crane, the beloved amber ale that Sun King has made for us for the past couple of years. We are putting that aside for this year, and we are making a very special beer for this anniversary year, and its flavor is going to be influenced by these very treats I'm making today. So it's been about an hour since I mixed up our dough, so let's get down to the frying. I'm trying to do this one-handed so I can show you this amazing rise that we got on this. Wow, look at that. It has risen right to the top of the bowl that I put it in. So do make sure that you are choosing a suitably sized bowl when you mix up your dough. All right, so I gave the dough a quick stir down with a rubber spatula. We've got our oil heated up on the stove. I've got 2 quarts of oil, and it's heated up to 350 degrees or thereabouts. I forgot my thermometer, but stick a wooden spoon handle into that, and if it gets bubbles around it, you're good to go. So the first thing that we're gonna do, I am using an ice cream scoop, or a 2-ounce scooper, and I'm gonna dip that into the oil, right? And then I'm going straight into my dough to get about a softball or a golf ball sized dough, and it should pop in and then jump to the top. And there you see it. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm gonna keep going with this and get a little more oil on there so that those slide right out. If you don't have a scoop at home, You can use 2 tablespoons, kind of like you do when you make cookies, and just get them turned around. You don't want to crowd your pan too much. You can probably do about 6 to 8 oliebollen per batch, as long as you have a big enough pan. So I'm going to stop there, and you're going to see that they're already starting to golden up. Look at that. So they're getting golden. We are going to fry them for 5 to 6 minutes, turning about halfway through. So you can see they turn pretty well. They're not perfectly shaped, but when is anything perfect? It's okay. They do want to turn themselves a little bit, so you do have to be a little bit cautious. Make sure that they're getting evenly cooked, because again, we don't want to make dough nuts. We want to make nice, golden, delicious, fluffy treats. All right, oliebollen. Very hot. You see the steam rising off of that. So, here's the thing. It's a nice tasting dough. You get a little bit of that speculoos hint. It's not overly sweet at all, but those cranberries add a nice little zing. A little bit of sweetness, a little bit of tartness. Once these are all prepared, I'll dust them with powdered sugar, and then we'll be good to go. So, be back. By the way, my glasses got covered in bubbling oil. Be careful deep frying. All right, folks, there we have it, our finished oliebollen. Well, not quite finished yet, because the last step is to go ahead and sprinkle them with powdered sugar.